Chapter 2. The next second was a blur. The car swerved right, missing Sophie by inches, then jumped the curb and sideswiped the streetlight. The heavy steel lantern cracked from its base and plummeted towards Sophie. No! It was her only thought as her instincts took over. Her hand shot into the air, her mind pulling strength from somewhere deep in her gut and pushing it out through her fingertips. She felt the force collide with the falling lantern, gripping on like it was an extension of her arm. As the dust settled, she looked up and gasped. The bright blue lantern floated above her, somehow held up by her mind. It didn't even feel heavy, though she was sure it weighed a ton. "Put it down," a familiar accented voice warned, bringing her out of her trance. She shrieked and dropped her arm without thinking. The streetlight hurtled towards them. "Watch out!" Fitz shouted, yanking her out of the way, a split second before the lantern crashed to the ground. The force of the impact knocked them over, and they tumbled to the sidewalk. Fitz's body broke her fall as she landed across his chest. Time seemed to stop. She stared into his eyes that were now stretched as wide as they could go, trying to sort through the flurry of thoughts and questions swirling around in her head to find something coherent. "How did you do that?" he whispered. "I have no idea." She sat up, replaying the past few seconds in her mind. Nothing made sense. "We need to get out of here," Fitz warned, pointing to the driver, who was staring at them like he'd witnessed a miracle. "He saw!" she gasped, feeling her chest tighten with panic. Fitz pulled her to her feet as he got up. "Come on, let's get out of sight." She was too overwhelmed to figure out a plan on her own, so she didn't resist when he dragged her down the street. "Which way?" he asked when they reached the first intersection. She didn't want to be alone with him, so she pointed north towards the San Diego Zoo, where there was sure to be a crowd, even during a firestorm. They took off running, though no one was following, and for the first time in her life, Sophie missed hearing thoughts. She had no idea what Fitz wanted, and it changed everything. Her mind ran through terrifying scenarios, most of which involved government agents throwing her into dark vans to run experiments on her. She watched the road, ready to bolt at the first sign of anything suspicious. They reached the zoo's massive parking lot, and Sophie relaxed when she saw people outside, milling around their cars. Nothing would happen with so many witnesses. She slowed her pace to a walk. "What do you want?" she asked when she caught her breath. "I'm here to help you, I promise." His voice sounded sincere. Didn't make it easier to believe him, though. "Why were you looking for me?" She tugged out a loose eyelash, more than a little afraid of the answer. He opened his mouth, then hesitated. "I'm not sure if I'm supposed to tell you." "How am I supposed to trust you if you won't answer my questions?" He considered that for a second. "Okay, fine, but I don't know much. My father sent me to find you. We've been looking for a specific girl your age, and I was supposed to observe and report back to him, like always. I wasn't supposed to talk to you." He frowned, like he was disappointed with himself. "I just couldn't figure you out. You don't make sense." "What does that mean?" "It means you're different from what I expected. Your eyes really threw me off." "What's wrong with my eyes?" She touched her eyelids, suddenly self-conscious. "We all have blue eyes. So when I saw them, I figured we had the wrong girl again. But we didn't." He looked at her with something like awe. "You're really one of us." She stopped and held up her hands. "Whoa, hang on. What do you mean, one of us?" He glanced over his shoulder, frowning when he spotted a crowd of fanny-pack-wearing tourists within earshot. He pulled her towards a deserted corner of the parking lot, ducking behind a dark green minivan. "Okay, there's no easy way to explain this, so I'm just going to say it. We're not humans, Sophie." For a second she was too stunned to speak. Then a hysterical laugh escaped her lips. "Not human," she repeated, shaking her head. Right. Where are you going? He asked as she moved towards the sidewalk. You're insane, and I'm insane for trusting you. She kicked the ground as she stomped away. I'm telling the truth, he called. Just think for a minute, Sophie. The last thing she wanted to do was listen to another word he said, but the plea in his voice made her stop and face him. Can humans do this? He closed his eyes and vanished. He was only gone for a second, but it was enough to leave her reeling. She leaned against a car, feeling everything spin around her. But I can't do that, she argued, taking deep breaths to clear her head. You have no idea what you can do when you set your mind to it. Think of what you did with that pole a few minutes ago. He seemed so sure, and it almost made sense. But how could that be? And if she wasn't human, what was she?